What if I told you there are places tied to the United States where life feels the way it used to? Slower, simpler, a little quieter. Places where you can step away from high taxes, long winters, and the constant rush and trade it for warm air, open skies, and days that don't feel scheduled down to the minute. You don't give up your citizenship. You don't lose your connection to home. In many ways, you're still living under the same flag. But everything else feels different. These places follow American laws, but they don't follow the same pace of life. Out there, nobody's chasing the clock. Nobody's asking what you do for a living 5 minutes after meeting you. It's the kind of place where mornings start with sunlight instead of alarms, where neighbors still talk, where a traffic jam might just mean slowing down for a scooter, a chicken crossing the road, or someone selling fresh fruit with a smile. It's not perfect. It's not fast. But for some people, it feels like something we've quietly lost. And the truth is, you could go there. You could choose a different pace, a different view, a different kind of day. But before we go any further, take a moment to like this video. And if something in you misses that slower, steadier version of life, consider subscribing. Because this channel isn't just about places. It's about remembering what life can feel like when it's not always in a hurry. Stick with me. There's a whole side of America most people never see. Let's begin. You're tired, not just physically, but mentally. Tired of sitting in traffic that never seems to move. Tired of watching everyday expenses quietly climb higher and higher. And yeah, that neighbor who fires up the lawnmower at 7 a.m. like it's a personal mission. You've definitely had enough of that too. Somewhere along the way, everything just started feeling louder, faster, more complicated than it needs to be. Every purchase comes with a screen asking for a tip. Every bill feels a little heavier than the last. In winter, that long, gray stretch where the days feel shorter than your patience. It's not something you're looking forward to anymore. You're not chasing some extreme, off-the-grid fantasy. You're not trying to reinvent your entire life or learn a new language just to buy groceries. You just want something simpler. A place where the air feels warmer. Where mornings don't feel rushed. Where life isn't constantly asking more from you than you're willing to give. An exit, but not an escape from everything. Just an escape from the noise. And that's exactly where the U.S. Virgin Islands come in. A place most people only think about when they're booking a vacation. Or when they quietly dream about disappearing for a while and not telling anyone. But here's the thing. This isn't just a getaway. For some people, it becomes something more. A different rhythm. A different pace. A version of life that feels a little closer to how it used to be. And the best part? It's still connected to home, just far enough away to finally breathe. The U.S. Virgin Islands are made up of 3 primary islands, St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, plus a smaller one called Water Island, which honestly sounds like someone stopped trying halfway through naming it. They're officially part of the United States, which means you don't need a passport, no complicated paperwork, and no awkward conversations with immigration officers questioning your life decisions. It's America, just with ocean views and a much slower heartbeat. St. Thomas is where the action is. Cruise ships arrive daily, shops stay busy, and frozen drinks flow like it's a full-time job. It's energetic, crowded at times, and perfect if you still want a bit of chaos mixed into your paradise. Then there's St. John, quiet, green, and mostly protected as national park land. It's less about nightlife and more about nature. Hiking trails, empty beaches, and people who say things like just be present without irony. Don't expect lightning-fast internet here. Expect deep conversations, strong opinions about organic living, and someone offering you homemade something you didn't ask for. And then you have St. Croix, the largest of the 3, but somehow the calmest. It's artistic, laid back, and carries a slightly mysterious energy. The kind of place where people arrive with a past and end up staying longer than planned. Living here feels like stepping out of the fast lane without leaving the country. You still use US dollars. Your phone still works most of the time, and your mail still arrives eventually. Power outages? They happen, but they're treated less like problems and more like gentle reminders to slow down. Now let's talk about cost, because paradise always has a price. Living here isn't cheap. Almost everything is shipped in, which means groceries, fuel, and everyday items cost more than you'd expect. That quick snack run can turn into a small financial decision. But if you adjust, eat local, shop smarter, and stop chasing mainland convenience, it becomes manageable. Then there's island time. It's real. Schedules are flexible, plans are optional, and punctuality is more of a suggestion. If you're someone who gets frustrated when things don't happen exactly on time, this place will test you. Or maybe it'll change you. One major upside? No state income tax. You'll still pay federal taxes, of course, but without state taxes, you keep a bit more of what you earn. You might end up spending it on sunscreen, fresh seafood, or the occasional drink by the water, but at least it's your choice. The Virgin Islands aren't for everyone. There's humidity, bugs, and a level of unpredictability that doesn't exist on the mainland. But in exchange, you get something rare. No es no. No long commutes. No pretending to care about office politics. Just ocean air, warm sunlight, and a lifestyle that feels a little more yours. And the best part? You never actually left the United States. Now let's talk about a place that feels like it exists slightly outside reality. Guam. It answers a question most people never even think to ask. Can you live on a tropical island, stay under U.S. law, and still feel like you've left the planet? Yes. And this is that place. Guam is a U.S. territory sitting out in the Pacific Ocean, roughly between Hawaii and the Philippines. In other words, it's far, really far, from anything that resembles your normal routine. Time works differently here. Literally. Move to Guam, and you're suddenly living hours ahead of most of America. You could be replying to messages while people back home are still figuring out breakfast. Now, let's clear up the confusion. Yes, it's American. No, you don't need a passport. Yes, U.S. dollars work. And no, it's not part of another country, no matter what your confused friend insists. Living in Guam feels like being in on a secret. You still have the rights of a U.S. resident. Well, most of them. You won't be voting for president from here, but you can still work, pay taxes, and live your life without jumping through international hoops. There's also a strong U.S. military presence, which means it's not unusual to hear jets overhead and briefly question your life choices. Culturally, Guam is a blend. Indigenous Chamorro roots, American systems, Filipino influence, and a mix of everything else that somehow fits together. The result? A place that feels familiar and completely different at the same time. The island itself is stunning. Beaches, dense greenery, and sunsets that don't feel real. It's the kind of place that makes you forget about deadlines and occasionally your responsibilities. But let's keep it honest. It's hot. Not summer day hot. Constant, humid, sticks-to-you kind of heat. The kind where even standing still feels like effort. And every now and then, nature reminds you who's in charge. Typhoons roll through, bringing chaos and forcing everything to pause. Supplies can also be unpredictable. Since most goods are imported, grocery shelves don't always look how you expect. You might not find your favorite brands, and sometimes you just have to work with what's available. It teaches you flexibility quickly. The roads are fine. The internet works most days, and services operate at their own pace. If you arrive with a strict, high-energy mindset, give it time. It won't last. Guam has a way of slowing people down, whether they plan for it or not. And then there's the lifestyle. It's relaxed in a way that's hard to describe. People mind their business. There's less pressure, less noise, and fewer expectations. You want to start something new? Go ahead. You want to live simply off the grid, maybe with solar panels and a dog that thinks it owns the island? That's possible too. There's a kind of freedom here that doesn't need to be announced. It just exists. Taxes? You'll still deal with federal obligations, but there's no state income tax, since Guam isn't state. It sits in that strange middle ground, connected but not fully included. Most people don't plan to move to Guam. They end up there for work, assignments, or major life shifts. But some stay, because once you adjust to the distance, the pace, and the unpredictability, you start to notice something else. Quiet, space, and a version of life that feels less controlled. It's far. It's different. It's not always convenient, but it offers something rare, a chance to step outside the usual system without actually leaving it. Just don't expect fast shipping. Now let's talk about a place that sits in a unique position, part of the United States, but with a personality entirely its own. Puerto Rico. It's like that one family member who shows up to gatherings doing things their own way, but somehow makes it work better than everyone else. Here's the basics. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. You don't need a passport to go there. You don't need to exchange currency. And you don't need to completely reinvent yourself to fit in. But the moment you arrive, it feels different. You'll still see familiar names, chain stores, fast food spots, everyday brands. But they exist alongside colorful streets, historic buildings, and a culture that refuses to slow down. Music plays loudly. Life happens outdoors. And mornings often begin with coffee strong enough to wake up your entire week. And that coffee? It's not just a drink, it's an experience. Usually made by someone who insists it's simple, but somehow it never tastes the same anywhere else. Living here feels like someone took the structure of the U.S. and relaxed it just enough to let people actually enjoy life. You don't need to be fluent in Spanish, but understanding a little helps. It makes conversations smoother and helps you avoid accidentally saying something completely wrong. Now, here's where things get interesting. Puerto Rico exists in a kind of in-between space when it comes to governance. People here are U.S. citizens. They contribute, they serve, they participate, but they don't vote in presidential elections. It's a system that works and doesn't, depending on who you ask. Taxes are where things really stand out. If you live and earn your income in Puerto Rico, you generally don't pay federal income tax on that local income. That's one of the reasons entrepreneurs, remote workers, and investors have been paying close attention. There's even a program, often referred to as Act 60, that offers tax incentives to certain individuals and businesses willing to relocate. It's drawn a wave of people looking to benefit from a system. Some integrate well, others stand out. It's a complex topic, and not everyone agrees on its impact. But beyond the financial side, Puerto Rico offers something much simpler, a different way to live. You can wake up near the ocean, spend your day working remotely or building something of your own, and still have time to step outside and actually connect with people. Food plays a big role here. Meals aren't rushed. They're shared, enjoyed, and remembered. Neighborhoods feel alive. Conversations happen naturally, and music is almost always somewhere in the background. But it's not perfect. Infrastructure can be unpredictable. Power outages happen, especially during storm season. Roads can be rough in places, and systems don't always run smoothly. It's part of the reality. What balances it out is the community. People help each other. They show up when it matters. And there's a sense of connection that's harder to find in more fast-paced environments. Living here isn't just about location. It's about rhythm. You can choose how you want to live. Beachside, in the mountains, or in a historic city where every street has a story. There's flexibility, opportunity, and a certain freedom that comes from stepping slightly outside the norm. You're still within the United States framework, but the experience feels entirely different. It's vibrant, it's imperfect, it's alive. And for many people, that's exactly what they're looking for. Now we're stepping into a place that feels even further removed from everything you thought you knew. American Samoa. If the other territories feel distant, this one feels almost hidden. The kind of place that makes people pause and ask, wait, that's part of the United States. Yes, it is, but exists in its own lane. Located in the South Pacific, it's the only U.S. territory below the equator, which, if nothing else, should tell you you're far from familiar territory. The region is made up of several volcanic islands and coral atolls, surrounded by vast stretches of open ocean. It's quiet, isolated, and visually unreal. Mountains rise sharply from the coastline. The water is impossibly clear, and everything moves at a pace that feels intentionally unhurried. But here's an important distinction. People born here are U.S. nationals, not automatically full citizens. That means they can live and work in the United States, but certain rights, like voting in federal elections, require an additional step. It's a unique legal position, one that doesn't come up often because daily life here revolves around something else entirely. Community, tradición, Respect. Culture here runs deep. Family structures are strong, customs are followed closely, and social expectations carry real weight. Something as simple as greeting someone properly matters more than you might expect. This isn't a place where you arrive and instantly blend in. You learn, you adapt, and over time, you are your place. Life here is slow in a way that goes beyond island time. It's not just about things taking longer. It's about priorities being different. Daily routines revolve around family, church, and shared responsibilities. Schedules adjust naturally, depending on what the day brings. Convenience isn't the goal here. Connection is. There's limited infrastructure compared to mainland standards. Fewer flights, fewer stores, and fewer of the things people usually depend on. Internet exists, but it's not something you rely on for speed. Shipping takes time. Options are limited. You learn to work with what's available. And strangely, that's part of the appeal. There's a level of simplicity here that's hard to find elsewhere. People aren't focused on constant upgrades or comparisons. They focus on what's in front of them. Daily life feels grounded. Kids spend time outdoors. Neighbors know each other. And social life doesn't revolve around screens. Of course, it's not for everyone. The remoteness can feel intense. Things don't always function the way you expect. And adjusting takes patience. But for those who are looking to disconnect from constant noise, it offers something rare. Space to breathe, space to think, and a lifestyle that isn't driven by urgency. Even the financial systems here operate differently. Taxes are handled locally rather than through the standard federal process, creating a structure that feels simpler on the surface, but still requires understanding. At the end of the day, though, people don't come here for financial strategies. They come here to slow down, to step away from constant demands, to live in a place where nature, culture, and community take priority over everything else. It's quiet, it's remote, and it doesn't try to impress anyone. But that's exactly what makes it special. And finally, we arrive at one of the least talked about corners of the United States, the Northern Mariana Islands. Most people have never heard of them, and if they have, they're not exactly sure where they are. But yes, they're part of the U.S. No passport needed, same currency, same general system, just placed far out in the Pacific, away from almost everything else. This group includes multiple islands, though most daily life happens on Saipan, Tinian, and Rota. Each one has its own personality. Saipan is the center, more developed, more active, and where most people settle. Tinian is quieter, slower, and feels like a step further away from the modern world. And Rota feels untouched, the kind of place where you start to question how much of the outside world you actually need. Living here means adjusting expectations. Internet, it works, but not always how you'd like. Some days are smooth, others not so much. Shipping takes time. Availability is limited, and convenience isn't guaranteed. But in return, you get something most places can't offer anymore. Peace. There's no constant rush. No bakhaigues. No endless background noise. You wake up to natural sounds instead of alarms and traffic. You move through your day without feeling pushed. And slowly, that changes you. The environment here is incredible. Beaches, cliffs, reefs, and open landscapes that feel almost untouched. It doesn't feel commercial. It doesn't feel crowded. It just exists. Crime rates are low. Communities are close. People recognize each other. And that familiarity creates a sense of safety you don't often think about until it's there. Culturally, it's a mix of influences, local traditions blended with history from different regions and periods. And others arrive for a reason they cannot quite put into words. They're not running away. They're simply looking for something they have not been able to find anywhere else. A quieter kind of life, less pressure to keep up, and a little more room to breathe, not just physically but mentally. A chance to step outside the routine they have followed for years and finally ask themselves if this is really how they want to keep living. Because that is what all of these places have in common. They are still part of the United States, still familiar in the ways that matter, but the day-to-day life feels completely different. There is less noise, less rush, and fewer expectations pulling at you from every direction. Now, if this made you pause for a second, If even a part of you felt like this is what you need, then stay with me. Subscribe to the channel and join me as we explore more places like this. Places that remind you that life does not always have to be this fast, this loud, or this complicated. Because sometimes the best move you can make is not chasing more. It is choosing less and finally feeling at peace with it.